to feel this is their year.
They must be playing defensive. Schmeichel's not coming up for this one. Thinks he's done enough.
Is this their moment? Beckham into Sheringham and Solskjaer has won it! Manchester United have reached the promised land. Oli Solskjaer, two substitutes, have scored the 2 goals in stoppage time.
4,
And the treble looms large.
1.
Let's try this again. Hello everybody and welcome to the United Community Channel. We're back. Apologies, I don't know what happened. Everything just crashed all at the one time about 20 seconds in. But I apologize. We're back up and running. Appreciate everyone who's joining us again. But you're welcome. Like I said previously, plenty to talk about, plenty to get into in relation to Manchester United over the last 24 hours or so. Main talking points from anybody who's watching and seeing the thumbnail, you can see it's in relation to the new ownership of Manchester United and the Qatari bid specifically, and their plans to pretty much create a footballing empire throughout the world, multi-club ownership, including Manchester United, PSG, and a Portuguese club called Sporting Braga. So we'll get in and we'll discuss that into the depths of it. We're also going to talk about United's pursuit of a striker. Some reports about Victor Osimhen servicing in the last 24 hours as well. And Marcus Rashford, of course, is back in training. We'll get into him as well. And potential talks about, I won't say stalling signing a new contract, but you know, he has less than 18 months left on his deal. Technically, next January, he can talk to other clubs. So let's see where Manchester United are in relation to that as well. Plenty to get into, guys. Leave your thoughts and comments in the chat, in the comment section below. Hit a like on the video. Hit subscribe if you're new. But let's get into it. So, obviously, the latest rounds of bids have been submitted for Manchester United. And as we can see here, after the latest round of offers, bidders are waiting to hear from the Rain Group, the US bank working with the Glazers, on what the next stage of the process will look like. And however, the Rain Group can potentially invite a third round of offers for the name or a preferred bidder. So, look, like we said previously, and I mentioned it before, I'm under no illusions that this technically, it is technically the second round of bidding, but the first round was a kind of a preliminary round of bidding. So really, the bids that we've seen gone in the last few days from the likes of Sir Jim Radcliffe and the likes of the Qataris are basically the first round of proper offers. I would be very surprised if the Glazers are to accept one of these offers without any back and forth. So I think, you know, we're in for a bit of negotiation over the next few weeks. I don't think anything is going to happen too quickly. But I suppose reports have surfaced over the last 24 hours about potentially what the Qataris want to do. We do know that they already own PSG, and there has been a lot of talk about, you know, are UEFA going to allow a multi-club ownership? You know, are they going to be allowed to buy PSG and Manchester United? There seems to be some kind of softening in relation to that. We see Man City and their group do it. You know, they own clubs in Australia, in New York, these kind of things. We've also seen clubs do it like the Red Bull group. So you have, you know, Red Bull Salzburg, Red Bull Leipzig, all of these kind of teams as well. So it has been done before. The only issue with Manchester United and potentially being owned by the Qataris is that PSG would be playing in the Champions League alongside Manchester United if we're to get into it. And that's the issue that comes up there. Whereas, you know, you're looking at your Manchester City teams, you know, they're not in the same competitions. Australia, America, and England, it can't happen. So now, obviously, maybe the Red Bull teams, it can potentially happen. But there seems to be a softening in relation to the stance on it. Now, the Qataris plan, and this is according to Duncan Castles in the Times, that Qatari's plan would be to mould Manchester United, Paris Saint-Germain and Sporting Braga into European football's most powerful multi-club network. So basically what it would mean is that under this guise of the footballing umbrella, the Qatari footballing umbrella, they would have scouting networks throughout the world, South America, Asia, Europe, to bring young talents into and under the umbrella of this organization, and to place him in somewhere like Sporting Braga, where they would, be nurtured, improved, trained, molded into hopefully pretty good footballers, and then they would be moved on to the likes of Manchester United and PSG. QSI executives envisage deploying Braga as a development club for both PSG and Manchester United. Elite talents will be signed for European and South American football, then move to Portugal to gain experience. So look, that's basically what we said there. Now, what do I think about this? And I'd like to know what you think about it. So let me know in the comments below, or let me know in the live chat. Let me know, anybody who's watching. I'm not a fan of this. I am not a fan of this. I will say right now, I am not a fan of Manchester United being involved in this kind of footballing, multi-club organization where, you have a feeder club, and, I think it monetizes football too much. And I think it takes away some of the, me personally, it takes away some of the, what's the word I'm looking for? Some of the history of Manchester United, the real, the real core of what the values of Manchester United are. If you go all the way back to Sir Matt Busby and the Busby Babes and these kind of things, Manchester United were on their own. They stood on their own 2 feet. They won European competitions. They were built from the ground up. They never needed a feeder club to be as good as they were, and so for that reason, it takes some of the not glory, but some of the historical value away from Manchester United, in my opinion, if we're to go down this road. I think this is the way football is going. We are probably going to see more and more clubs do it, major footballing teams do it. Real Madrid don't need to do it. Barcelona don't need to do it. Now, there has been historical links between certain clubs that, have maybe moves, if take, for example, over the last maybe 5 or 6 years, Southampton and Liverpool have had a good connection. Spurs have had a good connection with Real Madrid over the last few years, with Modric moving there, Bale moving there, things like that. I think this kind of feeder club is not something I'm a fan of. I do think it is the way football is probably going to go. I do think there's going to have to be some kind of rules and implementations put in to limit clubs from kind of monetizing transfers. But I do think it's the way it's going. If we're to take, for example, a player coming from Sporting Braga, okay, and he turns out to be a superstar, okay, where's he going? Is he going to PSG or is he going to Manchester United? That's my issue. Are both teams going to be fighting for him? Or, if Erik ten Hag wants a certain player, and then whoever the manager of PSG is wants him at the same time to come and play with them, who's going to win? You have owners, the same owners of both clubs. I don't know if it makes sense. Whatever, if you took the PSG out of the equation and it was Sporting Braga and Manchester United, okay, I would probably be a little bit more comfortable with that. But if you're putting PSG, who are going to be playing in the Champions League, who want to attract the biggest players as well to their league, just like Manchester United, what way is that going to be seen from fans' perspective? If, let's say, 2 superstars in a row come out of Sporting Braga and then move to Manchester United, what are the PSG fans going to think? Are they going to say, well, hold on now a minute, we, the last 2 were after going there, when are we going to get one? Or do you kind of come up with a scenario where the one will go 1 year and to PSG and the next will go to Manchester United the following year? I don't see it being a viable way forward. Maybe it will work. It's not something I'm going to be a fan of. If it does happen, all well and good. There's nothing we can really do about it. But I don't see it as being a viable option when you're putting 2 big clubs like PSG and Manchester United into such a similar bracket. I don't see it working. But let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it could potentially work? Let me know what you think in the comments. But me personally, I'm not a massive fan of it. I'm really not. I don't see how it's going to work. I really don't. But yeah, look, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. This report from Duncan Castles goes on to say that should the Glazer family ultimately choose to accept a Qatari bid for United, an informal network of clubs will be created that would be more powerful than any other in the game, significantly exceeding the prominence and financial muscle of Abu Dhabi's Manchester City-led footballing group. There's a typo in that. It says Manchester United, but it should be Manchester City. So look, that's the plan from the Qataris. It's I still think they're the best option for Manchester United going forward. I still think that if we are to compete with the likes of Manchester City and Newcastle and PSG, these real wealthy clubs, I think the Qatari option is the best option. This multi ownership and this kind of network of clubs, I just don't see it working. It could work. I don't know how it's going to work. I would like to hear more about what their plan would be. But when you have a team like PSG and a team like Manchester United, both looking like PSG are looking to win the Champions League, are Qataris going to prioritise Manchester United over PSG? What clubs are going to get what players from Sporting Braga? I don't see how it's going to work. Do you get first choice one year? Does PSG get first choice the next year? I don't see how it works when you have two such big clubs like that going head to head. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It really is, guys. But I still think the Qatari bid is probably the best option for Manchester United going forward if they are to be competing with the likes of Man City and things like that. But look, we'll see and know more in relation to these issues, as the weeks and months go on. But look, some good news. Marcus Rashford has started his recovery at Carrington. He's back in training for Manchester United. Obviously, he pulled out of England's international games over the last week or so. And, he's been in New York over the last few weeks as well on a few days rest. I'm delighted that he's gone away on vacation for a few days to get some rest. But he's back in training, thankfully. Hopefully, he'll be ready for Sunday. We don't really know the extent of the injury. We know it's a slight knock that he has, and I think it's been consistently this way throughout Ten Hag's short reign at Manchester United, that he doesn't give too much away in relation to injuries and recovery time and how long players are going to be out. He likes to keep his cards close to his chest, because if you do go down the road of giving a return date and when he should be back by, then there's a lot of pressure for the player to get back by that date. There's a lot of scrutiny from the media if they don't make it back, and fans on top of that. So I think Ten Hag is doing the right thing by not giving a return date for the majority of people who get injuries. But look, I think Marcus Rashford is on the side of not being a serious injury. And maybe if you're being conspiratorial, you could say that maybe it was a ply out of Eric Ten Hag and Marcus Rashford to get a bit of downtime, not have to go on international duty. We'll never know. But there has been growing concerns about Marcus Rashford and the fact that he hasn't signed a new long-term deal at Manchester United, given the fact that he's playing so well. Now, he does have a little under 18 months left on his contract. So technically next January, he is entitled to open talks with other clubs, and, he can potentially sign pre-contract agreements with other clubs. As we can see here, a report coming out by The Athletic, contract talks have begun. The pace is to pick up in the next few months. Rashford's salary expectations are key to the negotiation. So obviously Marcus Rashford wants improved salary, and, given his good form over the last few years. And sources have said that PSG offered wages of £400,000+ last summer per week, which is, phenomenal wages, you would have to say, in relation to Marcus Rashford. Given the fact that he had such a poor season last year, PSG came in with an offer of $400,000 a week for Marcus Rashford. So now, look, obviously, if we have Qatari owners coming in and buying Manchester United, you would basically say a move to PSG would be completely off the cards. You know what I mean? Why would you move from Manchester United to PSG when you have the same owners? Given the fact that you would hope Manchester United are going to be in the Champions League again next year. So look, is it something I'm really worried about in relation to Marcus Rashford? I'm not. I think he'll sign a new deal at Manchester United. I do. I don't think it's going to be a massive stumbling block. Look, I think he's focusing on maybe his form at the moment. He's playing really well. Ten Hag, I'd say, probably has a lot to do with this as well. And he's probably saying to Rashford, look, don't worry about it. You concentrate on scoring goals between now and the end of the season. We'll look at your contract in the summer. If there's some talks between your representatives and the club in the background, that's okay. You focus on your football. We'll get into the nitty-gritty in the summer. Keep scoring goals, and make sure we get into the Champions League. Make sure we try and get another couple of trophies under our belts between now and the end of the season. So it's not something I'm overly worried about, I have to say. But let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Do you think it's going to be? Do you think Rashford is going to sign for Manchester United in a new long-term deal? This is probably going to be the biggest contract of his career, given his age. He's 25 now, coming into his peak on the back of a really, really good season. All of the cards, you would say, are in Marcus Rashford's hands, on the back of his performances. And he does deserve a bumper deal, you would have to say. Talks with Manchester United over the last few months have suggested that, this salary cap is coming in and that we're not going to be paying extortionate wages. Is that going to be a factor with Marcus Rashford? Is he going to want a new bumper deal? And are Manchester United going to stick to their guns in relation to, no, we'll give you your basic salary of, I think it was a 200 grand a year is the salary cap, I think. And I think a lot of maybe add-on bonuses and stuff like that could be an option as well. But look, we'll see what happens. I don't think it's going to be a big issue. I think Rashford will sign a new deal eventually. But it all comes down to what we've, what he wants and what we offer him. Official Anne says, have you got an 8 o'clock show? I don't, not today. We don't do an 8 o'clock show at the moment. Reason being, and is that Manchester United, and there's so many games going on at the moment that United are playing a game every 3 days. So we've got games most days. So for that reason, I don't. When we get into the summer and into the transfer window, I will look at maybe doing an evening show as well, maybe an 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock show. But we'll see closer to the time. And Anne thinks Rashi will sign a new contract. So there we go. Yeah, I think he will as well. Now, look, if we're talking about attacking options for Manchester United and potential new signings, obviously one of the main talking points for United this year so far, and one of the main, I suppose, options is Victor Osimhen. And we see here, it is said, and this is coming from Gazzetta in Italy, it said that the number one candidate for Victor Osimhen is Manchester United. The player wants to play in the Premier League in the future. So they're suggesting that not only do Manchester United want Victor Osimhen is keen on Manchester United as well. So this is good news from Manchester United because he's he is a very good player, you would have to say. He's the lead goal scorer in Serie A at the moment. Napoli are going to win Serie A unless they completely implode. They haven't won it in an awful long time as well. So, it does bode well for Manchester United that he is open to a move. Now, if we're looking at other clubs that are going to be in for him, what other teams are looking for a striker this summer? Well, Liverpool aren't because they spent 100 million on Nunez. City aren't because they've got Alvarez and they've got Haaland. Newcastle, potentially. I don't think he's going to go to Newcastle. Arsenal, I don't think so. Chelsea, there has been talks of Chelsea looking for another striker, but they've got a pre-contract agreement with Nkunku as well. And how many more players can they potentially sign? I don't know. So I do think Manchester United is, one of the best options for him if he does want to move to the Premier League. Now, let's look at some of his stats this year. He's got some really, really good numbers. 29 games played in all competitions this season, 25 goals scored, and he's also got 5 assists created as well. So it does bode well in relation to goals scored. I do like to see this number in the Champions League because it means he's not just doing it in Serie A. Now, obviously, we know Serie A is a good league, but you would say that it's not as strong as the Premier League. Now, I want to throw a few stats at you, and I want to maybe run through some previous goal scorers, top goal scorers in Serie A, because this is my issue. A lot of the talk has been between Kane and Osimhen, and which one would you like? Me personally, I would think Kane is the better option. My reason being is he will guarantee you goals. We know Manchester United had scouts last night watching Evan Ferguson put in a really good performance against France last night. Obviously, Ireland were unlucky. I think if you're going to be looking at potentially signing an Evan Ferguson at 18 years of age and a Harry Kane, it's a very good future plan. You know, you have Harry Kane for the next 3 years, potentially, you know, still being able to play at high levels. And then you have a 21, 22-year-old Evan Ferguson playing 15 games a season coming through. Now, other people will say, and you know, I don't disagree with him, that Victor Osimhen would be a very, very good player for Manchester United as well. My only concern is Harry Kane will guarantee you goals in the Premier League. Victor Osimhen won't. Now, he may, but he's not guaranteed to score goals in the Premier League because he hasn't done it before. Harry Kane has. And I just want to throw this this kind of board at you. These are all of the top goal scorers in Serie A over the last nearly 20 years. Okay, now let's look at players who have done well outside of Serie A. Okay, now if we look at last year, Immobile hasn't done anything really since then. Cristiano Ronaldo, you could say, came to, you know, Manchester United, scored 24 goals last season. He's an anomaly, though, because he's just a freak. Okay, Immobile again, Quareglia, Immobile, Icardi, neither of them have done anything since. Edin Dzeko went to Roma after being in the Premier League because supposedly he wasn't good enough. We have Higuain, who didn't do anything in the Premier League when he played for Chelsea. Luca Toni, Icardi again, Immobile again. You would have to go back to 2012, 2013, and you would have Edison Cavani and Zlatan Ibrahimovic are maybe only two of the players that half done it in the Premier League. Okay, obviously Zlatan came and done really, really well for Manchester United, and Cavani done well. He was kind of a cult hero, but you know, spent a lot of his time injured as well in his final season. So my point here being is players coming from Serie A are not guaranteeing goals in other leagues. They really aren't. Okay, and that's no disrespect to Serie A. It's a good league, but it's not as good as the Premier League. So if you're looking at, and that's not to say that Osimhen won't score goals in the Premier League. I think he could score goals in the Premier League, but I think the safe option, if you're looking at 20 to 30 goals next season from a striker, Kane is your man, in my opinion. Now, I know there's guys who watch this channel that won't agree with me. They don't want Kane. They want Victor Osimhen. But if you're wanting to guarantee goals in the Premier League, in my opinion, Kane is your man. He really is. He really is. But let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Let me know, do you want Kane? Do you want Osimhen? Would you like someone else? You know, obviously Evan Ferguson has been touted. United are sending scouts to watch him. You know, would you like maybe him to come in as an understudy to a Kane or somebody like that? Let me know your thoughts in the chat below. And yeah, and we get into it. But look, short one today, guys. But I do appreciate everyone who's been watching. Thanks to everyone who's hitting the like and the thanks to the comments as well. If you're new to the channel, do hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook, do hit the follow button as well. I do appreciate it. If you're watching back to this at a later date, put your comments down below, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I appreciate it. We'll be back again tomorrow for more. There hasn't been an awful lot of things to talk about, really, given the fact that we're in the international break at the moment. But look, United are back on Sunday away to Newcastle, so plenty more to talk about. We'll be back with our podcast on Monday night as well. So I appreciate it. Thanks everyone who's watching. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the share button. Leave your comments below. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.